Hey everyone, my name is Rosie, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in our public health class so far. This was me at the beginning of the semester. I felt like I had no idea what I was going to learn or what I was getting myself into. I had never taken an environmental health science course before, so I had no idea what to expect. But along the way, I figured out there was more than I actually knew. And there was more that I wanted to know, well, especially the stuff that I didn't know already. Not only do I know more than I thought I would around environmental health sciences, but I also know the role that advocacy and being an advocate as a public health practitioner can play in reducing negative health outcomes. First, I needed to figure out what I was going to do in this course and how I was going to go about it. This was also my first time taking an online course, so I really didn't know if I knew what I was doing. But I came up with a game plan and had some good ideas along the way. Just like the course had laid out a roadmap in the ways that we would build upon course content, I also set out my own roadmap, knowing I'd encounter mountains and rivers and streams, and also some environmental health hazards. But I needed to figure out where to start, and so the first thing I did was plan ahead. Plan ahead for the course, but also how I was going to tackle an online course for the first time. I needed to figure out what was due when, and the nature of the assignment, and figuring out when things were due. Also, setting up due dates for myself made it more digestible to get through the material. That way I could check everything off, and it would be just right. Second, I knew I had to read, and then I also found more to read, in addition to our course material and the text. If I was curious about something I didn't know, it was helpful for me to read ahead, especially when it came to my hazard of particulate matter. I learned about different levels of risk of exposure to particulate matter, especially in cities or in areas where there's an airport. We also know that there are people that are more vulnerable to exposure, those with low socioeconomic status and racial and ethnic minorities, but also those who are living in areas of development. Through understanding my hazard, I learned that equity did not equal equality and that there are populations that need equitable interventions. Third, I knew it was important to ask, especially if I was confused around course content or maybe some questions. It was helpful for me to reach out to the course instructor and ask when I didn't know what I didn't know. It was also challenging since this was my first online course after being in college for 8 years. I felt like I was really behind in the game and that my classmates knew exactly what they were doing. Sometimes that's not always true. So I learned how to be flexible. Number 4, not just with my arms, but also being flexible with my learning and the trajectory of my learning. It was helpful for me to have each of the modules build upon each other, but also have the lecture, textbook, other readings and videos assigned for each module built upon each other, and how the practical application through the labs and the hazard project led me to this moment of, ta-da! I get it! Oops. Lastly, I knew it was important to make it my own, especially since the course content sometimes felt inaccessible, especially when we were talking about chemical and biological and viral hazards. In that way, I really focused on my hazard of particulate matter, because not only is it a a public health issue, an environmental health issue, but it's also an issue of advocacy. Understanding the different sizes, as well as the regulations through the EPA, helped me understand the role that I can play. And also understanding that there are scientists, community members, vulnerable populations, lawmakers, and policymakers, and me. Creating sustainable change does not exist in a vacuum, and we need to work together. I also thought it was important for me to understand the what, so what, and now what of this course. And learning that environmental health plays a key role in advocacy in a way that I never imagined, especially as it pertains to my future career. Thanks for joining me.